Hola estudiantes and hello 5th grade. Welcome back to our Aves Compartidas, and today we are going to be learning about the belted kingfisher as our 6th lesson in the series. Before we get into learning about the belted kingfisher, can everybody please pull out their bingo sheets from last week? What did everybody see? Take a moment and type in the chat. Maybe a couple people can share with the class if you saw anything fun. Did anybody get a bingo? Let me know. I want to see everybody's colorings. A little bit of background on the belted kingfisher. Belted kingfishers are medium-sized birds that live all across North America near the water. They like to fly above the water and hover. They are bluish gray. They have really short necks, long beaks. They have funny feathers that stick up on the top of their head, and they have tiny, stubby little feet. Today we're going to learn about all of that and more. Their cries have been described as long and rattling. I'm going to play one, and let me know what you all think. Before I move on in our lesson, we need to take some time for something that's extremely important. This is a land acknowledgement. Before we lived here, for thousands of years, Native Americans lived on the land. There were tons of different tribes, as you can see from the map, and each of them had their own regions that they inhabited. Since I live in Eugene, Oregon, I live in Kalapuya land. But even in just Eugene, there were lots of different tribes that used the land. As we can see from that tiny map of Oregon in the corner, there were a bunch of different people just in this state alone. However, if you don't live in Eugene, you might be living on somebody else's land. If you're curious at all whose land you're on, you're able to click on that link and it will tell you. Okay, I knew that Native American people lived here, but why is that important, you might be wondering? Well, for thousands of years, those native people were stewards of the land. If you haven't heard that word before, it means that lots of native people paid extra attention to take care of the environments that they lived in. They paid attention to the animals and the plants and the natural cycles to make sure that everything was working how it should. Now that I'm alive and I live in Eugene, it's also my job to make sure that I'm a steward for this land, just like it's all of our jobs to make sure that we're being stewards of the land that we live in. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons that Native people were such good stewards of the land is that they were constantly observing the world around them. Today we're going to do that with the belted kingfisher by listening to some stories from Native Americans about the bird and coming up with some of our own understandings as to why the kingfisher acts like it does. When we understand the other animals that share our habitats with us, then we can be better stewards of the land and try and keep it clean and a safe place to live for us as well as the other animals like the kingfisher. Alright everyone, before we begin our first activity, who can tell me the way that the kingfisher's feathers look on his head? Anybody? Do they stick straight up? Do they go to the side? That's right, they stick straight up on his head. And today we're going to hear a story from the Blackfoot Native Americans about how the kingfisher got these fancy feathers. The Blackfoot tribe is a group of indigenous people that lived in what is now Canada and the United States near Montana in the Great Plains area, and this is their story of how the belted kingfisher got his war bonnet. Okay, this will be a video, but for now I'm going to read the script. You have often seen Kingfisher at his fishing along the rivers. I know, and you have heard him laugh in his odd way, for he laughs a good deal when he flies. That same laugh nearly cost him his life once, as you will see. I am sure none could see the Kingfisher without noticing his great headdress, but not many know how he came by it, because it happened so long ago that most men have forgotten. It was one day in the winter time when Old Man and the wolf were hunting. The snow covered the land, and ice was on all the rivers. It was so cold that Old Man wrapped his robe close about himself, and his breath showed white in the air. Of course, the wolf was not cold. Wolves never get cold as men do. Both Old Man and the wolf were hungry, for they had traveled far and had killed no meat. Old Man was complaining and grumbling, for his heart was not very good. It is never well to grumble when we are doing our best, because it will do no good and makes us weak in our hearts. When our hearts are weak, our heads sicken and our strength goes away. When the sun was getting low, Old Man and the wolf came to a great river. On the ice that covered the water, they saw 4 fat otters playing. "There's meat," said the wolf. "Wait here, and I will try to catch one of those fellows." "No, no," cried Old Man. "Do not run after the otter on the ice, because there are air holes in all the ice that covers rivers, and you may fall in the water and die." Old Man didn't care much if the wolf did drown. He was afraid to be left alone and hungry in the snow. That was all. "Ho!" said the wolf. "I am swift of foot, and my teeth are white and sharp. What chance has an otter against me? Yes, I will go." And he did. Away ran the otters with the wolf after them, while Old Man stood on the bank and shivered with fright and cold. Of course, the wolf was faster than the otter, but he was running on the ice, remember, and slipping a good deal. Nearer and nearer ran the wolf. In fact, he was just about to seize an otter when, splash! Into an air hole all the otters went. Ho! The wolf was going so fast he couldn't stop, and swow! Swow! Into the air hole he went like a badger after mice, and the current carried him under the ice. The otters knew that the hole was there. That was their country, and they were running to reach the same hole all the time. But the wolf didn't know that. Old Man saw it all and began to cry and wail. Ho, but he made a great fuss. He ran along the bank of the river, stumbling in the snowdrifts and crying, but it was because he didn't want to be left in that country all alone, and he cried, not because he loved his brother, the wolf. On and on he ran until he came to a place where the water was too swift to freeze, and there he waited and watched for the wolf to come out from under the ice, crying and wailing and making an awful noise for a grown man. Well, right there is where the thing happened. You see, Kingfisher can't fish through the ice, and he knows it too, so he always finds places like the one the old man found. He was there that day, sitting on the limb of a birch tree, watching for fishies, and when Old Man came near to Kingfisher's tree, crying like a frightened baby, it tickled the Kingfisher so much that he laughed that odd, chattering laugh of his. Old Man heard him, and he was angry. He looked to see who was laughing at him, and that made Kingfisher laugh again, louder and louder than before. This time, Old Man saw him, and swow! He threw his war club at the Kingfisher, tried to kill the bird for laughing. Kingfisher ducked so quickly that Old Man's club just grazed the feathers on his head, making them stand up straight. "There," said Old Man, "it'll teach you to laugh at me when I'm sad. Your feathers are standing up on the top of your head now, and they'll stay that way, too. As long as you live, you must wear a headdress to pay for your laughing, and all your children must do the same." This was long, long ago, but the Kingfishers have not forgotten, and they all wear war bonnets, and always will as long as they are Kingfishers. What did everyone think of the story? Was it funny? Did you think it was scary? Everyone write a quick comment of what they thought in the chat, and we can maybe have 1 or 2 people report back if they feel like it. This is one story the Blackfoot people used to describe one of the characteristics that they observed in the Kingfisher, its funny feathers. Now it's our turn to practice coming up with reasons that we think that the Kingfisher is the way that it is. First, I want everybody to practice by taking both hands and making a big, long beak in front of your face. All right, take your beaks, should look like this. I want everybody to take this beak and practice making some quick stabbing motions. We are pretending to be the Kingfisher. What does everybody think the Kingfisher does with this long, pointed beak? Does he need it to make his long bird songs? Does he use it to help him get certain types of food? What do you guys all think? Take a moment. I want you to take your beaks, and I'm going to send you all into breakout rooms. So I think 2 or 3 minutes, and everybody have a little discussion. I think there should only be like 3 or 4 of you per room. But let me know what you all think. Bring your beaks, and we're going to come back and share. So be ready to let the class know what your group came up with as to what the kingfisher does with his long and pointy beak. Alright everyone, let's bring it back. What did you all come up with? Does the kingfisher need his beak for eating? Or maybe for fighting off other animals from his habitat? At this point, I plan on letting the students talk a little bit. The kingfisher's beak is long and spear-like because that is how he hunts his prey. The kingfishers are fishers, as you know, kingfisher. And yeah, just focus on the fact that the beak is used to spear and stab fish, but let the students work their own way to that conclusion.